Hi everyone and welcome to Studio Jake. I of course am your host Jacob Airy. Thank you for joining us for Comics, Cartoons, and Coffee, where we talk about all things comic books, all things cartoons, and of course enjoying a nice brew while we do it. So we're going to jump right into the topic today. I am going to talk about the top 10 Disney animated feature films for guys. That's right, they don't just make princess movies, boys. They have stuff for us, and I'm very excited about that. Disney is one of my favorite film companies, and yes, I know they're mismanaging Star Wars. They're doing a terrible job with it right now. I get it. But Disney has a really good legacy of making animated feature films, whether you're into their Disney Princess line or you're into another line that they might have, like their Disney Toon stuff. Whatever the case may be, they still have a really good track record as far as animation. And so that's what I want to hit today. I really want to talk about films that are definitely for the boys. And girls, that doesn't leave you out. Feel free to watch these films. These movies have dynamite female characters as well. So put them in, watch them with your guy, especially if you have Disney Plus. Alright, starting at number 10. This is actually an underrated Disney film. It's called The Black Cauldron. And it was actually based on a series of books that came out about this young boy who he dreams of being a knight, but he's actually a pig farmer. And lo and behold, through some kind of crazy circumstances, he ends up on the road to defeat the Horned King, which again is one of Disney's most underrated villains. You didn't even see him get a cameo in the My House Now song during Mickey's House of Villains event that they did on television. You know, when all the Disney villains came together and took over the House of Mouse. He didn't even get a cameo appearance. And even the Big Bad Wolf, a villain not seen since, I don't know, the 30s, even he got a cameo, but not the Horned King. And a lot of people had a problem with it because it's episodic. And that makes sense. It follows along 3 different books, and they kind of cram those books together to make one solid adventure. But I actually like it. I think the animation is impressive. Like I said, I think the Horned King is excellent as the villain, and it's really cool to see a young boy who dreams of being a knight finally get the adventure that he wants, and realizing that it's not as grand or noble as he was expecting it to be, but it's still a fascinating adventure. And it's really a great coming of age story about a young boy who dreams of becoming a man. So up next we have The Sword and the Stone, and what this is, it's a retelling of kind of the Arthurian, in other words, King Arthur and Camelot. People say it all fancy, Arthurian fiction, but it's based on that medieval fantasy about King Arthur and how he pulls the sword out of the stone. Here's a fun fact about the Sword and the Stone. It's different than the sword of the Lady of the Lake. I bet you didn't know that. A lot of people think that they're the same sword, but they're actually not. The Sword in the Stone, which everyone knows as Excalibur, is a totally different sword than the one he gets from the Lady of the Lake. There's something that they don't tell you, and certainly this movie doesn't tell you that, but it's still a really cool story about how an older Merlin takes a young Arthur under his wing to teach him about how to be a king and how to be a good man. Okay, so up next we have Oliver and Company. This is a retelling of sort of Oliver Twist. It's about a little kitten who gets lost in the city of New York, and he gets found by Dodger, who's this dog who lives with a pack of dogs and their poor master who lives kind of in this barge, and he's in debt to this really, I'm just going to say it, evil loan shark. And it's about their adventure and Oliver getting found by a little girl, and he likes being her pet, and so then that puts him at odds with Dodger, and it creates this really big tension. But it's a fantastic movie. The music in it is fantastic, and also how they portray New York as sort of the Big Apple with lots of fun, but then it also kind of has this seedy underbelly. It's really cool. I've been to New York City, granted only once. I had a lot of fun while I was there. I wouldn't want to live there because it's really expensive, but I will say this for New York, they have really good pizza. Alright, so of all the Sherlock Holmes stories adapted for children, The Great Mouse Detective is my favorite. It follows, and again, it's based on a book. It follows Basil of Baker Street, and he's a mouse who works with another mouse named Dawson, sounds a little bit like Watson, to help a little girl find her inventor father who's been kidnapped by an evil rat named Ratigan. Although don't call him a rat to his face because he might feed you to his cat. But it's a really fantastic adventure. It's another Disney film that doesn't get a lot of press, and I don't understand that. It's got amazing animation. It's not a musical like a lot of Disney movies are, especially coming out at that era, but it's still a fantastic movie. I highly recommend it. So up next we have Hercules. This was actually one of my favorite movies to come out during the Disney Renaissance. It's got spectacular animation. It's got a great voice cast. I highly recommend it for everyone. It's the retelling of the story of the demigod Hercules in Greek mythology, how he meets his Pegasus, how he gets trained to become a hero. Best of all, Lord Hades, who we all know is king of the underworld in Greek mythology, he's voiced by James Wood, and James Wood does a fantastic job as Lord Hades. He's just as a Disney villain, and of course he also voiced him in, I mentioned earlier, The House of Mouse. He voiced Lord Hades in The House of Mouse, and even in, though I don't think he did the singing voice, but he did do the regular voice for House of Villains. So another great story, just a great hero-themed story for boys. So this is actually my wife's favorite on this list. This is Treasure Planet. This is a movie that actually didn't do too well when it came out in theaters, and even to this day, there's actually a lot of people who consider it one of Disney's worst animated features. I respectfully disagree. I think it's a good film about a young boy who needs a father, although he's more like a young man. He's a teenager, I guess, in Jim. And so he meets kind of this fake father in Long John Silver, although in this story he's a cyborg. He's not just a one-legged man. And I really feel like this is one that really impacts people, and it has an amazing song called Jim's Theme. Some people also call it I'm Still Here. And also, for those of you who are curious, Jonathan Young, he is a music YouTuber. He does a really great cover of I'm Still Here. But I really like this movie. It's a good adaptation of Treasure Island, the adventure story, with Captain Nathaniel Flint and all this about this crew that goes on a journey to find this hidden treasure that Flint left behind. I highly recommend it. It's a great film. You can enjoy it. Don't listen to the naysayers. It's actually one of Disney's best movies. So this is another story that Disney adapted from English folklore. This is the story of Robin Hood, and all about how he fought the Sheriff of Nottingham. And of course, in this version, they are a lot like Zootopia. They're animals walking, and they have opposable thumbs, and Robin Hood is a fox, and Little John is a bear. Maid Marian is another fox. Prince John and King Richard are lions. The Sheriff of Nottingham is a fat wolf. It's got this really great voice cast as well. You'll hear a lot of famous cartoon voices in the story. I highly recommend Robin Hood. Growing up, Robin Hood was always one of my favorite stories. I watched the ones with Earl Flynn. Yes, I know I'm a millennial. I'm not allowed to watch those films or have an opinion about them, but those films are really good, and you can tell Earl Flynn's influence on this Robin Hood story, on this animated film that Disney did. Here's one that might surprise everyone, but it's a Goofy movie. And why is it on this list? Because it's about Max, who's a teenager now. You remember Max? He's Goofy's son. They go on all these crazy adventures together in the show Goof Troop. A Goofy movie is about Max becoming a teenager, and he's kind of tired of his dad's like yucking and all that. And so Goofy kind of misunderstands something that happens at Max's school, so he decides to take Max on an ultimate road trip. The problem is Max made a date with the girl of his dreams, but to get her to understand and not to go out with another boy, he tells her that he's going to appear on stage at their favorite rock star, what is his name, Powerline. He tells this lie, and so he's angry at his dad because his dad's making him go on this road trip. And then Goofy's kind of mad at Max. He's like, I don't understand, I'm just trying to help you. And it's a really good father and son tale. It's really good. It's really funny, well written. So it's really cool how this movie, even though it's kind of one of Disney's more understated films, it affected pop culture in that way where people remember the songs, people remember the quotes. It's a fantastic film. Highly recommend it. This one came out towards the end of the Disney Renaissance. Again, this is one where people may have said maybe it came out after. Whatever the case may be, it is Tarzan. This is one of my favorite films. I actually read the Tarzan of the Apes by Edgar Rice Burroughs before I saw the film. Edgar Rice Burroughs is the guy who created Tarzan. Now, the book is way darker than this Disney feature, although the Disney feature has some dark moments in it, but it's really great. It's about this man whose parents, Elsa's parents, I don't care what Frozen 2 says, Elsa's parents, I'm kidding about that. My wife is giving me the stink eye as I dive into that fan theory. Anyway, Tarzan's parents, they get lost off the coast of Africa and they get killed by, just the jungle. And so then Tarzan gets raised by a family of gorillas, and he doesn't understand why he's different. He doesn't understand why he's weaker. He kind of adapts and he becomes Tarzan. And then he actually meets some humans, and that changes his whole perspective. Really fantastic film. One thing you can't not mention is the soundtrack by Phil Collins. It is spot on. All right, last but definitely not least, we have The Lion King. This was actually, and I'm talking about the original one, by the way, this was actually the first movie I ever saw in theaters. I was in kindergarten when it came out. My parents took me to see it, and then the next day at kindergarten, all my little friendlets, we all were talking about it when our teacher came into the classroom. Mrs. Myers, I wonder if she's still teaching. Anyway, really great, fantastic film about Simba, who's the son of Mufasa, who's voiced by the incredible actor James Earl Jones, who everyone else knows as Darth Vader. He voices Simba's father, Mufasa. Mufasa dies in a really tragic accident, and Simba is manipulated by his uncle Scar, who's voiced by another amazing actor named Jeremy Irons, to go on the run. And so, he meets up with Timon and Pumbaa. Meanwhile, Scar becomes just a despot as he rolls over the savannah and the jungle. It's a fantastic movie. It is by far my favorite of the classic Disney Renaissance era animated feature films. Just an amazing film. Well animated, really well done. Voice acting is spot on, every way, shape, or form. The soundtrack is incredible. My point is, The Lion King, fantastic film. Definitely get it. I know it's on Disney Plus. It has to be. It's one of Disney's masterpieces. So check it out and tell me what you think in the comments below. For all of these picks, all 10 of these picks, what do you think? Do you disagree with one? Did I leave one out that you want me to talk about in a different video? Just let me know in the comments below. Why are these movies, do I say that they're good for dudes, for guys, for boys, for men? It's because they all contain a male protagonist. He is not overshadowed by another character, and he has a really good fulfilling arc, and they capture different men. So like if you just watch one, then you might go, well, I don't like Hercules. You don't have to like Hercules. You can like Simba. You don't like Simba, you might like Tarzan. It doesn't matter. These stories are important. The male side as well as the female side, like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, where we talked about the girly girl superheroes. Every mythology has to have that side of it that can really show boys. Great example in mythology. And let's face it, animation and other forms of movies, obviously, but particularly animations have really big influences on a young man's life. And so it's really important that they get a glimpse of this mythology, of this folklore, of this legend early on. So that's why I recommended these 10. You've got King Arthur, you've got Robin Hood, you've got Tarzan, amazing characters in literature, as well as characters like Simba or Goofy, who's just a fun-loving guy. Whatever the case may be, these can touch anyone's imagination. So I highly recommend you check these out, especially if you've got a nephew, or if you have a son, or if you have a little cousin who's annoying but you have to babysit him, so you just want to put on a movie so he'll shut up. You can put on one of these films and have a positive influence on his life. Anyway, that's all the time I have for today. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check me out on all the social medias, on Parler, Twitter, Instagram. My handle is @RealJacobAiry. On Facebook, I'm author Jacob Airy. And of course, check out my website, StudioJakeMedia.com, for even more film, television, anime, commentary, whatever you want to read out. Head over there, StudioJakeMedia.com. That's all the time I have for today. I'll see you next time, right here on Studio Jake.